Hi, my name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording. Erica Synths sent over this black Dual VCF and a couple Pico modules asking if I wanted to try them out. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And I was like, what could I do with these? And some of the other Erica Synth modules I have, I think the Black Hole DSP is the other one. I was like, I'm going to put these in the rack, this rack that I've been sort of building up. I'm going to play around and I'm going to see what I can do with these modules. And I wanted to share with you today how I'm going to patch this and the intentions behind it, and obviously, you know, make some music with it. This box is going to be making some techno, or, you know, four on the floor, sort of repetitive, squelchy stuff. So, yeah, let's get into it, okay? Our sequencing is happening down here. Pamela's new workout is our sequencing brain, sending out 24 ppq to the Tuesday over here, which is sending its ticks out, which are 16th notes, into Steppy. Steppy's going to sequence our drums with some interesting twists. And Renee is going to sequence our pitch sequences with some interesting twists as well. So first thing first, let's get some drums going on in here. So out A of Steppy is going to go into the trig 1 of Piques, which is a tiny little version of the Mutable Instruments Piques that has a drum mode in it. And I'm going to have track 1 set to kick, go into this dope mixer here. And I'm going to have track 2 set to snare. Shoom boom boom ba dee boop boop ba doop ba doo boop ba doop boo ba doop. We'll try to keep our cables clean. I don't know if we'll succeed. Picking the right cable length is important when you are building a system you have to touch. So we'll go ahead and make this one longer too. If we go ahead over to Steppy here and we start entering some steps into A, we'll hear a kick drum. And if we go to B, we'll hear a snare. Now, the thing that, you know, isn't great about this is that while you do have knob control, you don't have any CV control over the sounds themselves, which is, you know, it is what it is. It's fine. It's a tiny little module that does a lot of stuff, and therefore it's useful, and that's the idea behind it. So, what am I going to do for a hi-hat? Well, I'm going to use the Erica Synths noise oscillator up here. It's a little tiny noise oscillator that has a decay knob on it. I really should have it closer to me right here, but I wanted to put all the Erica Synths stuff next to it so I could get that sweet promo pic for the YouTube thumbnail. You know how it go. We're going to use Steppy, just sequence the noise, but we're going to do something a little tricksy, which I just kind of came up with a second ago that I am having fun with. So actually, we're going to go out of Steppy, C will be our hi-hat, into the 2 HP clock multiplier and divider, and we're going to take the out of that, and we're going to keep our cables nice and clean and go over here to the trig in of the noise oscillator, and we're going to take the out of the noise oscillator and put it into one. This is a 8-channel mixer. I got it from Craigslist recently from a very nice friend who bought a stand from me not too long ago, I think last year, and it's just kind of funny when you like reach out to someone who has something you want now, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I bought this thing that I wanted from you last year," and I'm like, "Oh, that's really funny." Okay, so out C. So let me explain why I'm putting it into the clock divider and multiplier. So let's go over to C, and let's go ahead and enter some steps and give ourselves 16th notes basically, and hit play. Okay, so this div thing here takes an incoming clock, which is just gate signals, as we may have talked about in a previous video, which you should go check out. And what it does is, with this rate knob, it divides or multiplies. Now, that gives me, right in front of me, a control over some density of high frequency information in my mix, which is really a big part of what I'm trying to do here, is have some kind of control that does some compositional thing that will increase the complexity or decrease the complexity somehow in my thing and surprise me. You know, I want to be able to groove off this. I don't want everything to be predetermined. So the thing about clock dividers is that while we're sending it let's go ahead and send it a quarter note pulse. So if I increase this, I can get triplets, which is dope. Here's my 16th notes. And I can get really, really short things, which is another texture, right? But because this thing thinks it's looking for a steady clock, what happens if we fuck it up? So there's our main rhythm. So what it's doing now is it's getting confused about the clock because it looks at these two pulses and it says, oh yeah, the clock is this long, and then it gets to here and it's like, oh wait, maybe it's not. So by using a clock divider and multiplier and a uneven gate pattern, we can get really cool rhythms just right here, which I think is like truly really cool. And triplets, which is also very cool. Hey, look at that. Cool. So what's our next drum? Our next drum is the Bassimilis Iteratus Alter. This is a new module to me, and I have not really gotten a chance to dig into it too much. So we'll just go ahead and go out of track D on Steppy. Right to the right here of the Bassimilis. I'm just going to call it the BIA because I don't know how to pronounce its name. We're going to go out with a tip-top cable, stack it, go into the left and right of the Popple filter from After Later Audio. So what's this going to do? Well, one, it's going to give us the ability to filter this noisy friend down. So let's go ahead and give it some triggers so we can hear what that sounds like. So we're going to use our friend here to change the gate pattern for that. We're going to use the Popple to filter it down when we want to. I want to send the Popple some frequency modulation, and then we're going to run it into the Endorphin Milky Way for effects. So this is going to get its own effects channel, and then we're going to move up to this stuff and talk about how we're going to sequence that and use the Erica Synths DSP. So I'm going to take an output from Pamela's new workout. Give me that long boy. Let's go ahead and say 6 here. So let's go over to Pam's and set up our frequency modulation for this. I'm going to make a little envelope on Pam's, and I'm going to set it to 16th notes, and I'm going to go into it, and I'm going to set the gate type to envelope. And let's go ahead and hear what that sounds like. Turn this all the way down and check this out. So now you can hear here. Hear that little rhythmic pinging there? We're going to play with this a bit more, but right now I just really, really want to be able to add that texture in here. Let's go ahead and turn this up. Cool. Just a really nice texture that we're going to really have a lot of fun with as we progress here. Let's get into some melodic sequencing, shall we? Okay, so we're going to be using Renee. Let's take the pitch out of Renee and go over to our first voice. Get in there. Just go in there. And we're going to put that into the 1 volt per octave of the Pico voice, which is a really great little digital voice module. I actually pilfered that from my big rack to put in here. It's very, very useful. Has some really great sounds in it. And it has a built-in decay knob right here, depending on how the parameters are set up. What that means is we just need to send it a trigger from Rene, as opposed to as opposed to having to send it to a VCA, which is real nice. So let's take the gate out of here. Ooh, but before I do that, we need to talk about how we're going to use the filter. So how are we going to use the filter? Well, we're going to use it as an envelope for the most part because it sounds really good. So what I need to do actually is molt my gate out signals from Renee. So let's do that with a tippity top cable. Use a big long boy. Cool. So this is going to go over here to our trig. And now we can trigger this. And we're going to molt this, so to speak. Do I need? Yeah, we'll just use a long cable. Into trig 1 of maths. So now, as I hit play, we'll see a few things. So over here, Pamela's is sending a gate signals out to move the clock of this around. You can see our sequences moving here. Okay, so we're going to make this gate pattern a lot more interesting, but what else we're going to do is we're going to play around with the gates here. You can see right now maths is being triggered, so that's good. Let's go ahead and take, I can't remember exactly how I did this before. I think I just took this, I think I took 1 out so I could use it as a function generator. Yeah, let's do that. Let's take the full out. So 1 out here is going to be controllable by this, the amount of it is going to be controllable by this attenuverter here. The full, I think we're just going to use the full out for right now. So let's go ahead and put this into our CV modulation for that. So now every single time a gate gets sent out of here, we'll trigger an envelope and we'll also trigger the voice itself. So why don't we go ahead and get that going, shall we? We're going to take low pass 1, put it in to channel 1. We're going to take low pass out 2, put it into channel 2. We need to VCA our VCO. So this is going to go into in. We need to do a multi-molt of our friend here. So let's go ahead and do a similar thing to what we did over here. Stacky cable boy. And one of these is going to go into, let's see, I think it's just going to go into here for right now. And we're going to take the full function out of this and put it into the CV modulation for the VCA. And we'll take this one out this time, make sure it's all the way up. Let's just go ahead and make this the same. And put this into the CV modulation of here. And then we're going to take the output of our VCA and put it into here. Woo! Okay, now we need to take the low pass out, low pass 2 out, and put it into channel 2 over here, like so. Okay, so what have we done? Well, we've basically just set up 2 basic subtractive patches, so to speak. We have 1 volt per octave and gate coming out of here. We're triggering envelopes. We're triggering our VCA with that envelope, and we're also sending modulation to our filters here. So let's go ahead and turn our filters all the way up for right now, and let's listen to what we can do with this. Pamela's here is sending gates out to the sequencer and Renee and moving our thing around. Let's go to the Y page, which is the one we're sending to the Pico voice that we're listening to right now. Make sure 2 is down. Wonderful. Okay, let's make this more interesting. Let's go into track 7, which is our X gate for Renee. Turn it to 16th notes. And let's go over here and turn down this. Dope. Okay, cool. Let's make a sequence, shall we? Let's go into our quantized pitch, and let's go ahead and choose just a C and a B flat. It's really simple. Now, this is where the fun begins. one of the things that I learned about, well, one of the things I experimented with when I was getting into this was realizing that PAMS here has a lot of settings that can be controlled via a CV input, meaning that all kinds of things you can set to respond to voltage coming in here. There's a lot of different things that you can do with this, but what we're going to do with it right now is use one of these two channels here from maths to put voltage into CV1 here and use it to create randomness in this sequence by increasing the R skip function on PAMs going out. So let's give that a try real quick. Take 2 directly out, put it into CV1, and R skip here will turn until CV1. So by increasing voltage to this, I decrease the probability of a gate being sent to our sequencer. The other thing we could do with this, because it disappears really quick, right? Let's try putting it into CV2. Because we're sending out negative voltage, basically. Yeah. I think it's better in CV2. So we can take our pattern from a lot of stuff going on to not a lot of stuff going on, which is very, very cool. So the other thing that we can keep in mind here is that we have the ability to turn gates on and off within the context of Rene as well. So if I go to the gate page and see that every single one of these steps is currently sending out a gate, I can turn some of these off and get a more complex modulation and trigger pattern. You can also hear that we get those little like non-triggered notes because that trigger is also being sent to this friend right here. So we're already getting a pretty slippy, cool sounding bass line. Overall, I really like the way that this filter sounds. And I like how big the knobs are. So we're going to do the same thing with our friend VCO2 here. So let's go ahead and mute, turn down our first sequence, and turn up our second. So we need to go through that whole process again. Let's go ahead and flip this up an octave and go over to Y. We're going to repeat that same sort of thing that we did before here, where we go to track 8, turn it up. There we go. Now remember, math is creating our envelope. Let's go ahead and quantize this. Pick our pitches. And let's go into the settings for this and change the R skip amount to CV2. That's so cool. Let's bring in our bass line. Now, here's where this gets really fucking dope. So the R skip function in PAMS, which tells the gates to fire on and off or not, based on a percentage, which we're now controlling with maths here, is different for each channel in that the probability is determined on a per channel basis. So when I have all the gates going here, let's go ahead and switch this. So when I turn up the knob here that's going to increase the randomness, it's done on a per channel basis and we get 2 sets of randomness. Does that make sense? I hope it does. There are a couple more things I want to do with this, and then we'll just jam around a little bit. The first one is I want to take the triangle out of the VCO2 here and skip all of the VCA stuff and just have it go into 2 here. Because it gives us this really fantastic little sub bass, which is a whole nother texture we can bring in and out. So while we have all these, we also can bring in this sub bass. Take the high pass out of the filter and put it into here. High pass out of the filter, put it into here. And now we want to take the left out of the DSP, put it into these 2 channels here, 3 and 4. Obviously it's a little hard to get to these 2, but what have we just done? Well, what have we just done? Created another texture for us to play with. We've taken the high pass out of this. And sent it into the Pico DSP. So we get that nice high pass filter sound going through an effect. And we can have a nice washed out reverb for a lot of variety. And as we bring this up, the high-pass filter starts filtering up. So we now have a relationship between how this thing sounds and how this thing over here sounds. And then, of course, we can control it here. We can bring in that triangle bass and have a nice sub bass to go along with this. don't know about you, but that's pretty fucking fun for me. Okay, let's recap real quick before we move on. We have Steppy doing very basic sequencing to our kick and snare. We have it doing clock divided stepping into our clock divider here, going to our noise hi-hat to create interesting rhythms, which I need to get back onto to play around with. We have Renee sending out pitch sequences and gate being molted to not only trigger our voices, but also trigger our envelopes, which are being fed into our filter. We're taking two outputs from the filter, the low pass output, which gives us that squelchy bass sound, and then the high pass output, which is being fed into a reverb, which gives us a whole nother texture we can reach for to open things up. The BIA is another texture as well, which I'm going to start modulating now. So we have a couple more odds and ends just to make this a little interesting. So I'm going to do a whole video on the BIA because I just don't know it well enough yet to like really be able to really dive into it well. I know I like it. I know that it's a really cool friendo, but I haven't really figured out all of its sweet spots. It's more of like a fun mistake machine, which is another reason why it's going into this right here. This over here is this is not Rocket Science Tuesday. It's an algorithmic sequence generator that has like a bunch of different algorithms you can assign to these four things here, and then scales, major, minor, Dorian, blues, all that kind of stuff, chromatic. Each one of these knobs controls a particular aspect of the sequence that's created. We'll talk about this more in another video. One of the really cool things that this can do here is, one, we're already getting the ticks out to drive Steppy from it, meaning that it's sending out 16th note ticks here, depending on what the clock is going into it. But what also we can do is each one of these sequences has a note out, gate out, accent out, and velocity out. So I like to, even if I'm not using the Tuesday to do like the full-on note sequencing, I like to grab the other stuff, because these three knobs here control the density of information coming out of this. And it's just a really neat way to feed modulation around your system that, is just kind of surprising. So let's take the accent out and figure out a good place for this. I think we're going to do some modulation on the BIA. So let's solo the BIA real quick and take a listen to what's going on with that. God damn, that thing is ugly as hell. little change, isn't it? That was fun. It's always a good sign when you like try to demonstrate something and get completely sucked into jamming. So there are a few more things I could do with this. But as for right now, I'm just really, really stoked on this concept, what we pulled off here, you know, like having a few controls over really changing the topology of the sequence, jumping in, changing the quantize settings for Renee here, and getting you know, new melodies, new vibes, really decreasing the density of our sequences, and then playing with longer envelopes. And our effects to create new vibes. The filter plays really, really nicely. Being able to switch voices on the Pico voice right here is nice. Having that triangle output is nice. And we kept the Pico LFO free to go into our friend here and do some wacky stuff when we wanted to do that. So yeah, fun stuff. Thank you, Erica Synths, for sending these over. Really, really fun to play with. I hope I have inspired you guys a little bit to try some new stuff in your racks. I know that I will be exploring some of the techniques here quite a lot more in various other iterations of this rack. So my name is Jeremy. Thanks for watching. This is Red Means Recording, and I hope you have a wonderful donk.